Hey everyone, Dr. JJ here today. We're going to talk today about your brain and sugar and how those two things interact and cause you to be really, in a sense, addicted to sugar, especially in today's society where we have really a glut of sugar. So let's start breaking down. First off, let's start with what is sugar. Well, sugar is basically it's a carbon chain with a few hydrogens, oxygens, that type of things. It's for the chemical structure of it. And what you put those together in different conformations, you get different sugars. You get things like glucose, sucrose, maltose, fructose. Anything with an "ose" on it usually is a sugar, right? Then starches and things like that also are just long chain sugars. When you look at what that does, one of the more things I always like to talk about with patients, especially new patients, is I always ask them, why is their tongue up by their mouth, or in their mouth up by their head, instead of down by your stomach? It just doesn't, besides it would look weird, but why is that? And when I got to chiropractic school, we figured out why. I started studying neurology, started studying how the brain works, how senses work. We have this sense called taste. Taste is basically, the best way to put it is it's an awareness, meaning that your brain becomes aware of it, your body becomes aware of it, knows what it is as soon as you taste it. So we have, salty, sweet, bitter, umami. These are different types of taste. We're going to mainly focus on sweet today because that's what sugar acts upon. So when we taste something, the cranial nerves fire back up into the brainstem, and the brainstem fires up into the cortex. And when it fires up into the cortex, it fires into a whole bunch of different places, predominantly firing into places that produce dopamine. Now, dopamine sounds, it's a big fancy word, but it's really a neurotransmitter. And that neurotransmitter is the one that is responsible for our pleasure, right? It's the sex, drugs, and rock and roll neurotransmitter. And it responds to social interactions. It responds to sexual feelings and those types of things. It's our pleasure. We love it. It's great. Well, sugar and drugs actually have a massive effect on that part of the brain too, especially addictive drugs, alcohol, things like that. But when you eat the sugar, it fires off into the brainstem, fires up into the cortex again, firing off those dopamine cascades, so to speak. And that makes it feel really good. That's why sugar foods are our comfort foods and things like that. So the importance, this becomes important later when you're trying to break this sugar habit, that we have to understand that basically our brain is kind of working against us because we get so much pleasure out of the eating of sugar. Now, the problem is that sugar, when you eat it, it does produce that. And we have so much sugar available today. We have almost 130 pounds at least of sugar consumed a year in this country. Back in the 1700s, it was 4 pounds of sugar. Back in the Paleolithic era, it was 2 tablespoons of sugar. 2 tablespoons is nowhere near 130 pounds. So we have just this glut, this massive amount of sugar that we're consuming on a daily basis. I think we eat 5 to 10 times a day on average, what we would eat a year in the Paleolithic area of sugar. So it's a massive amount. And this becomes a problem when you look at that dopamine cascade again, bring it back to the brain, because normally when you eat something that's healthy and it tastes good and you like it, it fires off into the brain. You get those nice little dopamine cascades, and it's good. But the problem is, so that dopamine cascade goes up with a real good meal, and then it comes back down. The more you eat that same meal, become a mono food culture, the more you eat that same meal, that dopamine response starts to go away. You don't get nearly as much of a dopamine response. Let's say you have well, maybe this is not a great example, but you have bacon and eggs every day for breakfast. Who wouldn't love bacon and eggs unless you're sensitive to eggs, like me? But bacon for breakfast every morning. You start to lose that joy, well, maybe not with bacon, sorry. Maybe that's not the best example, but when you look at the same food over and over again, you lose that dopamine curve. So when you're talking about, in general, varying your diet. If you eat a healthy diet and keep eating different varied meals, evolutionarily speaking, that's the right way to eat, because we get that dopamine response. It's good for us. We built that in to our brains because, or we got that built into our brains because we need to eat a varied diet. So the more varied your diet is, the more chance you have of getting all the right vitamins, all the right minerals and things like that. So it becomes massively important to vary your diet. So that's why we get the reward centers, that pleasure from eating different foods on a consistent basis. Now, let's bring this back to sugar. We talked about normal food. You get that, if you eat it over and over and over again, you get that kind of drop in dopamine response. You do not get that drop in dopamine response when you eat sugar. Hence the reason why, neurochemically speaking, it can be slightly addictive. That's why a lot of times when you're coming off of a high sugar, high starch diet in today's modern American culture, modern United States culture, you tend to have what we consider like a carb flu. Your body just kind of doesn't know how to utilize energy properly without all that sugar. So that's part of the reason why it's hard to give up sugar. That's part of the reason why, evolutionarily speaking, it's a really easy source to get. That's why it gives us that response. It's an energy source that's readily available. We're just eating way too much of it in today's society. So we've got to get off that crap. Get the white stuff out of your diet. Now, bring it back a little bit here to focus it back around to the 4 things you can do to kind of get back under control of your neurochemistry, back under control of your dopamine cycles, back under control of your diet and health. So have a fatty snack around, because that's going to keep the blood sugar up. That's going to also hit some of those same reward centers. Hence the reason why I was talking about bacon, which maybe not the best example a little bit ago, but the fat hits those same reward centers. Not quite as hard or not quite as much as sugar, but we still get that same like, ooh yes, fat, because it is a big energy source also. So when you eat the sugar and you eat the fat, or when you replace the fat with the sugar, then it really starts to keep your blood sugar balanced and get that neurocascade working in your favor. Now, if you've got kids at home, so this is one of the things, I usually focus on adults, but one of the things I always get asked is by parents is like, how do I get my kids to eat a little bit more of the good foods and stay away from the sugars? Well, you've got to just get them off of it. You can't have that stuff in the house. And God bless you. I have a tough one. He's not as tough as some of the cases I've heard out there, but my son is a little bit of a sugarholic. We have to make him eat the food he doesn't want to eat first, and then he gets the food he wants, like a sweet potato or things like that. So we've had to play this game, and you know, it's not easy. So I can empathize with you, but we start with the proteins and the fats and make him eat that first. So that's what I will suggest to you, to have protein snacks, have fat snacks, not just purely protein, but you got to have that fat with it. So have that fat snack there. That's the first thing you can start to do. Second thing you can do is actually exercise. If your kids are sugarholics, get them out running around and get them doing things more active, and then make them eat the fats and the proteins and stuff like that first. Again, going back to step number 1. Step number 3, we're going to look at actually getting adjusted. Surprisingly enough, chiropractic, and especially when it's done by an applied kinesiology practitioner, chiropractic can have a lot of effects on the neurocascades and making sure that your nervous system fires properly down that. I'm not saying it's going to fix your addiction. I'm not saying chiropractic can fix addictions. I'm not saying any of that stuff. All I'm saying is it can help with the symptoms of control of your life, taking another healthy step forward for you. And we can help find the right nutrients to help bridge the gap so that you can get to that healthy lifestyle, so that you don't have to rely on eating the other things. But that becomes essential for that, for getting adjusted and getting checked for the right nutrition. That's why applied kinesiology, in my opinion, is essential. So, and if you ICAKUSA.com to find a local AK practitioner near you. Number 4, when you look at step number 4 here, when you look at, there's a great little book I was turned on to by Bo Eason called The Little Book of Talent. And it really, he studied all not Bo, the author of the book, forgive me, I don't know his name, Little Book of Talent. He studied all these little hotbeds of talent. And what he found was that if you have talent, it's it's not that you just are born with better genes. It's not that you're born with this talent. It's actually that you have a much different relationship neurologically, meaning your emotional relationship to practice, to the day in and day out monotony and routine on every day of making every day your practice. That is what actually is one of the biggest keys to achieving a goal, to achieving your lifestyle, to achieving anything you want to in life. If you want to be the best, you must practice. All right, and you must have a good relationship with practice. Like, oh, I don't want to go to practice today. It's like, all right, I don't want to go to practice today, but I'm going to go in there and hit it hard, get it done, and get it over with. You've got to have that same tenacity with food. There are plenty of days I do not want to cook. I do not want to eat healthy. I don't want to at all. It just doesn't, it's like, no, I don't want to do it. But you know what? I know the consequences on the back end of not doing it are going to hurt me a lot more than doing it that day, or prepping the food 3 days in advance, or doing whatever it is, or eating that scone, or eating that croissant, or ordering that pizza rather than cooking. These types of things. And I've developed that in my head, that I get that reward from cooking a meal for my family, or I get that dopamine cascade from eating the healthy food because I know it's good for me and I know I'm doing the right things for my health. That is absolutely the most important thing you can do to really start to shift that neurologic, that addiction, that ability to eat healthy. That, in my opinion, is the crux. That's what nobody teaches. That's what nobody really kind of tells you. If you can shift that psychology, then you know what? You'll get it. And that's a game you have to play with yourself. Make it a competition. Make it joy. Make it that when you do it, you get that reward. You can create that in your own head and make those dopamine cascades happen in your own head by just getting happy and smiling about it and enjoying that food. So anyway, that's the recap. The top 4 things you can do to get your blood sugar, brain axis under control there, to get the sugar, the neurologic aspects of your addiction to sugar under control are: 1, eat fat and protein and keep your blood sugar up. That way you won't have the spikes and falls of your blood sugar, creating that need and craving for the hypoglycemia and everything else like that, of the hypoglycemia and that type of thing. 2 is get some exercise. Go out and go for a walk. And then see what changes in your blood chemistry, see what changes in get activated is a great way to put it. Go out and just get moving. Number 3 is get adjusted by a certified applied kinesiologist, chiropractor, in my opinion. That is the way to go. It's helped my family, it helps me. When I get adjusted, my brain just fires better and works better on all cylinders, so to speak. But it also, as you fix the proprioceptive input chiropractically, you balance out the output of your neurochemistry, in my opinion. Great work done on a lot of that stuff at the Carrick Brain Centers, applied kinesiologists all over this country. So there's number 3. Number 4, make your relationship with food more of a healthy one, meaning, you know what? I am going to get a tremendous amount of joy out of eating that healthy food. I'm going to get a tremendous amount of joy out of doing the right thing for my health and for my diet and for my body. That relationship to the practice of eating properly is where you need to be. So take those tips, run with them. Give me some comments below. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up. I'll try to pay as much attention to the comments as we can. And until next time, make your health as easy as you can, and you're going to do some amazing, amazing things. Just make that relationship with food a lot better. And I'll see you next time.